All right. Having a good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Peya Peri Gimel Halacha Zayin. We're going to be learning Daf Lamed Gimel, starting on Daf Lamed Beis, Amid Beis, second line before the bottom of the Amid, Rav Bino B'Shem Rab Yirmiyah. We learned in the Mishnah the general rule that a Shchiv Miraz gift becomes invalid retroactively if he recovers. And that is true even if the Shchiv Mirah made a real kinyan. However, the Mishnah says that if the Shchiv Mirah gave a gift, but he retained for himself even karka kol shehu, that in itself indicates that this is not a matna Shchiv Mirah. And if a kinyan was made, obviously, because when it's not a matna Shchiv Mirah, you got to make a kinyan, then even if he recovers, it will not be bottled. That is the second to last rule that we had in Mishnah Zayin. And the Gemara is going to pick up in middle of the sugya. We're going to introduce Shitas Rav Bina as we'll speak out what would happen if he leaves for himself mitaltalin. And even though there's going to be a machloikis against Rav Bina, the subsequent sugya on Daf Lamed Gimel is going to be building Bishitas Rabbi Bina. Now, guys, as we mentioned, just to quickly repeat, the Mishnah's case, the Mishnah says that he retained, then even if he dies, the gift stands. That's because he made a king. Normally, a Shchiv Mirah will not make a king because he doesn't have to. However, the Shchiv Mirah many times would like for his will to be recorded in a document. That's called a daiteke. We'll see that word. We had this in the Bavli. Again, that's not a kinyan, but that makes the Shchiv Mirah feel even safer. My words are being recorded. And the Gemara is going to ask a new question. That will be the bulk of today's daf. Mamash Gavaldi. Normal Shchiv Mirah, no kinyan. He had his will written in a document, and it was given to the intended recipient. And we say that if this guy gets better, it's null. But if he doesn't get better, then the document is a document. Actually, there's a nuance to speak it out right now. If he dies, God forbid, from when does that person become the owner of the property? From death? Or since he died, retroactively from when he made the declaration? And that's a big possibility. I'm saying this, that's lumdis, that's not in the Gemara. But the Gemara's question will be, can the Shchiv Mirah prior to death retract his gift by giving it to someone else? It's called kasav lozer, v'chazar v'kasav lozer. Well, if it only goes into effect upon death, and if it's b'chlal not a gift, then maybe he should be able to retract, and we will see that that's a big machlikas amiroyim, and a big part of today's daf will be going back and forth, trying to prove one, trying to prove the other, and then finally at the end of Daf Lamed Gimel, we're going to go back to the final case in the Mishnah Daf Zayin. That's a woman who's married, who has a ksuba, as every married woman must have. Automatically, the value of the ksuba is leaned towards the property, on the property of the husband. The husband now is the one that gave away as a gift. It doesn't have to be a Shchiv Mirah. He gave away all his property. And in the same document that he gave away the property, he wrote to his wife, and something for you, something karka kolshu. So the Mishnah says that if it appears, that's the key, that she accepted the gift, that will be the topic. It has to appear. Of course, if she says she accepts the gift, even if it only appears, she was moichel the lien of the ksuba against the other property. Even though what she received is not enough to cover her ksuba, the Gemara is going to give a three-way machloikis what needs to happen for us to come to that conclusion that she accepted the gift. Okay, that's going to be today's daf. Again, daf lamed beis amid beis, 2 lines before the bottom of the amid. Rav Bina b'shem Rav Yirmiyah. Not like the case of the Mishnah that we just reviewed, where she had karka kol shehu. What happens if the Shchiv Mirah Daniel gave a gift verbally? Again, the case of the Mishnah was he made a kinyan. He gave all of his karka, but he left for himself metaltalin. She and metaltalin. How do we interpret that? We could argue, if he plans to get better, if that's the Havamina, right? That's the only reason why he would be Meshayir metaltalin. Says Rav Bina, We don't view it that way. We say that the gift will become invalid if he dies like any other shchiv mirah. It's like he retained nothing for himself, so it remains a matna shchiv mirah. Why is that? It's amazing. Rav Bina looks at metaltalin, guys, like nothing. In other words, land is something that people can live off. That's Rav Bina's understanding of property. Ad hayoyim hazeh, if you can say amongst people, you have some people that feel that way. They understand that what's pshat a good investment? Real estate. If not, it's not. That's the way Rav Bina understands it. Now, not everyone will agree with Rav Bina. Many people will like karka kol shehu. How can you live off karka kol shehu? Metaltalin, maybe you have a diamond that's worth who knows what. It's worth $1 million. You can live off that. Okay, but that's a gavaldik machloikis. You can say, if you can say a machloikis in the Gemara, in Torah, can you live off metaltalin? Should you invest your money in land or in stocks? I mean, that's the maybe. Okay, and Abina holds metaltalin is nothing, and therefore, being that you cannot, that's the premise, you cannot sustain yourself off metaltalin. The Mishnah is dafka when you are Mashayah karka. That is what takes away the gift from being a matnas shchiv mirah, only karka. Says the Gemara, asa chami. Asa chama means in the Babli it would be toshama. Toshama in the Babli means come in here. In the Yerushalmi we say come and see. Come and see. Look inside the marafulda. Asa chami boy urei. Shir karka kolshu. Yeah, the Gemara is asking B'lashon bitmiya. Yeah, if you leave a little bit of land, if you leave a land in the size of a centimeter, oh, that's a proof that he plans to recover, so he should have what to live off. Yeah, shkoyach, live off a land of kolshu. And shir avanim toivim umargoliyos, which is also metaltalin. Ein loy michya bitmiya. Look inside the manafulda. Shareim avanim toivim umargoliyos islei chayusatfei. You could live off that a lot more. Mimash yesh lemekarka kolshu. Ella vadai, what the Gemara means to say is that I disagree with you, Rav Bina. Whoever the eye of the Gemara is, Ella the Marafulda vadai metaltlin nami have a shiur. And by the way, in the Babli, that's also the maskon. Even though that's the maskon in the Babli, even though the Gemara is quoting a opposition to Shitas Rabbi Bina, but Chevra, as I mentioned, we're going to go forward actually continuing accepting the opinion of Rabbi Nam. Another important thing, like we mentioned in the introduction, for the Mishnah to say, guys, it's simple, that when the gifter retained land, that undid the shchiv mirah part of the gift, but it remains a gift. Obviously, there was a kinyan. Guys, if there's no kinyan, and it's not matna shchiv mirah, it's a promise. Now, just to know, if a person makes a promise, it's ideal to keep the word. If I say, I promise I'll give you something, then moitzi sefer sechatishma, but you cannot take me to Beis Din. Means if I don't give it, I'm doing something wrong, but it's not the topic. It's not yours. That's the case of the Mishnah. Now, if he did not make a kinyan, okay, then, like we said, then it's a normal matana. And now the Gemara is going to say that what happens if not only was a kinyan made, but they also had the kinyan recorded in a will. So you have a shchiv mirah. Even though we said that if he retains, it's mavatalit. But what happens if not only did he make a kinyan, but he had it recorded? So Amar Rabbi Yosi, Yoideya hu ha'ish hazeh. This is again not the case of the Mishnah. This is where not only was a kinyan made, but it was recorded down. You wrote down that you made a kinyan. Sheshchiv meram zaka filo b'dvarim. So when you have a person that goes beyond, why would someone make a kinyan and record the kinyan? Whenever that happens, that's the Gemara. That's Rabbi Yossi saying a big klal. Is that's kedei lasois matnas body. He upgraded the gift. He made it non-revocable. Not only when he retained for himself, but whenever you have a shkivera that goes and makes a king and then has it written down, that makes it into a bona fide gift. Let's look inside the Mara folder. 5 lines from the top. Rabbi Yossi koil al shkivera shekosav bekinyan. Who? Hoya shkivera. So, number 1, you didn't have to write anything. Number 2, you didn't have to make a kinyan. This guy did both. Rabbi Yossi. In that case, Shekana, the recipient, acquires afilu loishir, even if he didn't retain, ve'amad, ve'eni yachalasu. We don't say, he retained the zaraya that he's planning to live, even if he didn't do any such thing. He was planning to die. The fact that he made a kinyan and he wrote it, it becomes a bona fide gift, v'chein, because of a kinyan b'shtar, and v'chein pirshu atoises in Bavli, the understanding of Shitas Rabbi Yossi. Okay. Next case. The next case is all based on Rabbina. Rabbina holds Shir Metaltalin means nothing. Only Shir Karka. Guys, throughout Halacha, there is a klal that Avadim hukshu lekarkois, right? That's a pasuk in Parshas Bahar. V'hisnachaltem oisam levnechem acharechem l'reshes achuza l'oilom ehem tavoidu l'reshes achuza. The word achuza is a word that's used by land. We are foreign, and I say we, I mean non-Moroccans. Moroccans still have avadim. Now Morocco, you can get yourself an evet. Legal, but we Americans we're the worst thing in the world is avadim. But the trader compares avadim to karka. So the kasha is, frekti gemara, shir avadim. We want, that's a question, says the Manafulda. Is that like metaltalin? This is all on Avbina. Because the Gemara, like in the Bavli, that argued with Rav Bina, of course, Shir Avadim is like Shir Karka. If you plan to die, why you can live off Avadim? This is only Rav Bina. On Rav Bina, Shir Avadim, what will be the case? What's the halacha? And you have a big statement here. So the Gemara responds, they're saying, I don't know. And then they're saying, I learned about, and I forgot what the Tana said. And that's what the Gemara says over here. That Tani Rab Yudin Bar Pazi, the Bar Doloya L'choira is not the son of, but it's the name of a place. That what? That there was a Braisa that spoke about what will be the halacha by Shir Avadim. Narvas then V'loyodin Matane. It's interesting. We don't remember. I don't remember what the Braisa says. And in other words, I don't know. How that affects the way you go about it, but certainly go about it. No, there's a difference if something was never discussed by the Tanoim. So we, the era of the Amoraim, we have to come to our own conclusion. And we have a general rule that if the prior era came to a certain conclusion, we're not going to go against it. So if they never discussed it, like all these modern halachas, then it's on us to make the halacha. If we know it was discussed by a previous generation, then maybe what he's saying is, Chevra, make an effort to find out what it says in the Bryce. Before we give an opinion, we have to know what the prior generation said, what the prior era said. That's the way the Torah Shabbat Peh was transmitted. And that's the rule generally. The Amoraim don't argue with the Tanoim. They can take a side. The Rishonim don't argue. The Achronim don't argue. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, and like we spoke out, this is going to be the big case that we're going to go spend most time today. In this case, no kinyan was made. This is very important. Every nuance is different here. No kinyan was made. A normal oral declaration of Meshchivmera, but like we mentioned, a Shchivmera would prefer that his oral declaration be recorded in a document. This is not like a shtar that affects a kinyan. When I give a gift, one of the ways to give a gift, let's say I'm giving land gift. Karka niknis bekesev v'shtar b'chazaka. Shtar would mean that I'm writing, I am gifting you this field and I'm writing the boundaries on this date and I give you the document that affects a kinyan. That's not this document. It's not a document that is creating a kinyan. It's a shchivmera who dafka is not making a kinyan. He knows. But he wants for his words to be recorded, and it was, and Chosav Lozeh, and he gave over the document to, let's speak about Yaakov is the Shchivmira. He gave over his Nechasim to Reuven. In a normal case, no shear. What would happen if he goes away? Reuven owns the property. What would happen if Yaakov recovers? Reuven would get nothing, which means that you can argue the document only goes into effect upon death, which means it still belongs to Yaakov. So now, the Chosav Lozeh, Yaakov, before passing, he passed away at the end. He didn't get better. He's ill. He wrote everything to Shimon. How beautiful is that? Let's look at Pnei Moshe. Pnei Moshe is 7 lines before the bottom of the narrow lines. Chosav Lozeh v'chosav v'chosav Lozeh. So first of all, like we spoke out, the matna shchivmena beloy kinyan. We're saying it because the Gemara is not going against what Rabbi Yossi said. Every case is a case. We already said we accept Rabbi Yossi. If a kinyan was made and documented, that's not even a matnas shchivmena. That's a matnas body. There was no kinyan. Ella shezicha b'ksivasa lozeh v'chazar v'zicha la'acher. That's it. That's the case over here, and we want to know whether he has that capacity. Now, David, let me say it like this. Listen to these words. If the matna shchivmera, that's the lumdus behind it, only goes into effect upon death, then what's the question? If it didn't go into effect yet, why would he not be able to retract it? The way to word the answer is, it goes into effect upon death, but when it goes into effect, it goes effect retroactively. Just gives more oisius of understanding what's the question, and it's a machlekes hamarayim. It's a big machlekes. It's right over here, and there's back and forth more than usual. It has some effect. It has some effect. It's like by kiddushin. If I can make, I'm just thinking of a link. What happens if a person is makadosh a woman only to go into effect in 30 days? Remember that sugya? And then another guy came and he gave her a kiddushin to go into effect in 20 days. And then another guy gave her a kiddushin to go into effect in 10 days. So who's married to her? The last guy. But if the guy who gave it for 30 days is saying that after 30 days it should go effect retroactively, if I remember correctly, then the first guy will be the one who's married to her. Even though it only goes into effect in 30 days. I think. Since it goes retroactive, it should to give the first one the rights. On the other hand, it only goes into effect. That's what Vlad is saying. Shkoyach goes retroactive. There's a machlokes. Let's read inside. So it's Gavaldik. Rav on one side says Eina Yochal Lachzor. And I want to say like this, that another nuance, just we learned the Pnei Moshe. If he did not write a document, then it sounds from our Gemara, of course he could retract. That's what it sounds like. If it was just an oral statement. He said this, he said that. Amira Mavatal Amira. Here, the fact that he gave, and that's why I get the hemshach of the Gemara. That's why the Gemara quoted Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi wrote that when you make a kinyan and you document it, it's a mamash gift. It's mamash gift. Here, you didn't make a kinyan, but you documented it. So it's like more. I think it's because of the kasav. And Taka, Rav says, "En yochal lachzor." Let me word it this way. I want to make it clear. According to Rav, what happens if he gets better? This is so beautiful. What happens if he gets better? He keeps the property. In other words, even according to Rav, it's not that the gift is chal now. That's what you're saying. It's a matna shchivmera. It goes into effect upon death. But the fact, let me word it like this: the fact that he wrote it and he gave the document was given to the future recipient, that is the gifter's renouncing his right to retract. Still a matna shchivmera. If he gets better, he keeps it. If he gets better, he keeps it. But he loses, he gave up his right to renege. Because it was written and given over. Yeah, yes.
It's kind of like a will.
It is a will. Not kind of, Vlad. Very good. But I want to make it I want to speak about a will. That's the problem. I want to say, I was about to say, yeah. In other words, a will, once again, it's retroactive. Okay, good. Okay. So Rav holds against a matna shchivmera. So beautiful. You gave a document, you gave up you're right to renege. However, that's Rav. But you have like this, Rab Abba Bar Chuna and Rabbi Yechanan. It's not just Rav and Rabbi Yechanan. It's both. They both say, Yachal Lachzer Boy. Gewaldig. Even though, that's the beautiful, even though if the owner recovers, okay, it's not nothing. The owner recovers, it's null retroactively. And if the owner does not recover, the fact that the gift only goes into effect upon death, it gives it, that means it's not a gift. That's the way, okay, so therefore he can retract. Hey, Chavidam. Now, what should we do in the following case? What's the case? We're speaking here about an Evet Kanani, Evedei, and an Evet Kanani that belongs to a Kohen is allowed to eat Truma. Let me go to my Yaakov, Reuven, and Shimon. I know that in our Zaydas, it doesn't work that way. They're all, Yaakov was beyond the Kohen. It was Yaakov Avinu. But let's go in the case. Let's just stick to the names. Hoya, Rabbi Harishain, which is Yaakov, the original owner. Vahasheni is Reuven. Vahasheni is not the second recipient of the gift. Vahasheni was the first gift recipient, if they were Kahanim. And Vahashlishi, in our example, now, what happens vis-a-vis, can he eat Truma? Now, again, it's amazing. But we're saying, what are we saying, guys? How are we learning? L'kula alma, the gift only goes. Now listen to these words. But when the gift goes into effect by death, it goes into effect retroactively. And if it could end up biyad Yisrael, even though if the original owner of the coin does not die, it will never go to a Yisrael. The Ebed already cannot eat from. That's the retroactive. I know there's different Gersois. Gideon picks it up. We're going to take out the word ein. What does Rav say? Rav says the words ein yachal lachzer boy. In other words, it will for sure belong to a kohen, the original owner, kohen. The only recipient, if there'll be a recipient, kohen, then yachal. Yachal loichal betruma. Abed al date Rab Abba bar. It's interesting. Before we had chuna, and now we have Huna, but we mentioned so many times that Huna and Chuna are the same in the Yerushalmi. And Rabbi Yechanan, since Yachal Lachzer Boy, and therefore, indeed, if he will die, it's going to belong to the Shlishi. Shlishi is a Yisrael, even though it belongs to the Shlishi upon death. No, upon death, it belongs to the Shlishi from when he gave him the gift. And then retroactively, he sinned the Eved by eating Truma when he belonged to a non-kohen. Eino yachol lechol betruma. However, hakoil moedim, and everyone will agree, she'imay Rabbi Harishan Yisrael. Now, the machlekes between Rav and Rabbi Yechanan will be, will it go to Reuven or to Shimon? Right? Rav holds, eino yachol lachzer. It's going to go to Reuven. If he, according to Rabbi Yechanan, if he dies, it's going to go to someone else. If the Rabbi Rishon is a Yisrael, even if Reuven and Shimon are Kohanim, and even though upon death, retroactively it goes to the Kohen recipient, but that's only upon death. But prior to death, still belongs to Rabbi Rishon. So, Eino Yachal Lechol Betruma, Shema Yavri. And look at the words of the Gemara. You can be Madai. You don't say any Yachal Truma because now he belongs to a Yisrael. That's the way I would have said the words. Very wise, these words. Not you can't eat it because now you belong to Yisrael. We don't say that. Because if we would know for sure that he would die, if there's no, if Vadai Mace, then he can eat right now. So that's the nuance about the Matna Shchivana. Even though if he gets better, it's his. Since when he dies, it goes back retroactively. If we know for sure he's going to die, we already will consider him to belong to our kohen. I'm saying the same thing. Saying that this Gemara, b'chachma, in a few lines, is giving you the side of the matnas shchivna. It's a very unique type of ownership. Okay.
So, in one case, it goes from coin to coin to Yisrael.
Yes, in the first case, it goes from Yisrael to coin to coin. To coin to coin. So no matter Rav or Rabbi Yechanan, he cannot eat it. Why? He might get healthy. These words. Why? But I'm saying, Valad, why don't we say the way you were thinking? We say you can't eat it because right now you belong to Yisrael. The Gemara does not say that. The Gemara says because he might get healthy. Yes. No. No, he gave. There was no shir avodim. There was no shir avodim. His whole property is avodim. No. Forget this whole property is avodim. No, the owner is not an eved. No. Yaakov is not an eved. Yaakov owns an eved. The eved belongs to Yaakov, and he's giving the eved from matnas shchivna. The only thing he owns is an eved. He didn't keep it. He's giving away his property. Okay, let's go back. Says the Gemara, we're going to try to prove that Rabbi Yechanan is right. Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Bun. The Shem Rab Chunam says, as also wissen, that Mas Nisa is a Braisa, Messiah Leil Rab Abba Bar Huna and Rabbi Yechanan that hold Chevra Halkop. What do they hold? That Yochoy Lachzor. Guys, remember, Rav says, ain't it Yochoy Lachzor? Where do we have it from? What state in the Braisa?
Totally on him writing down this.
Yes. So let me go like this. A matna shchivna, which means a matana that does not need a kinyan because it's a shchivna. When you record it, that document is not a shtar matana. Shtar matana itself is a kinyan. That is called a daitika. The word daitika means da tehe lemekam v'liyos. This is going to stand. The guy is saying, when I die, I want X, Y, and Z to happen. So you're writing down to him, what you're saying is going to be effective. It's just the writing of the words of the shchivna without a king. That's called a person would write, for example, Sadi Nesuna Lach. That's a normal shtar. Matna shchivna goes into effect upon death, like a retroactive. A normal gift goes into effect right now. A gift. I'm giving you a gift. Whenever you get the document, you can make a kinyan by taking hold of the document. The question will be, what happens if you have either a buddy, he's not sick, he's not writing upon death, he's giving a normal, he should have written a normal matnas body. Instead of writing the nusach of a matnas body, they wrote a daitiki. They wrote the nusach of a daitiki. So what's the nusach? Look inside the Pnei Moshe, 4 lines from the bottom. Body shekasav daitiki. Shekasav b'shtad, they wrote Loshin Sava'a. Like even a buddy, by the way, even a buddy can give a gift that goes into effect, but only after his death by writing Mahayoim Ula Achar Moisi. A healthy guy. Okay, he didn't do that. He wrote what you write by Shchiv Mira. Or I'm already in the Pnei Moshe. The next case will be the opposite. A Shchiv Mira that we know he's sick, but they wrote Beloshen Matnas body. Neither of these documents have any validity. So says the Brais. Bari shekosam daitiki or shchivna shekosam matana. Says the Brais. Choizer boy. Now every case is a case. Let's work it out. The body may renege. I'll tell you why, guys. Because what affects a kinyan? Shtar is when you write Sadi Nesunalach. If they write a document that this guy, this healthy guy, is expressing his desire that his property should go to so-and-so upon his death, when he's healthy, that document has no legal effect. It's not a legal document. If the document is making the kinyan and the document is not legally kosher, today when you do a wedding, you know how hard it is to write a ksuba? But if a document is affecting, even if the ksuba really the document is not affecting it, the kinyan is affecting it. There's avada when you want the document to be kosher. So it's clear the reason why if the buddy used a matna shchiv mida, it's ineffective because it's not a legal document. So why would it be effective? Now let's go in the other direction. A shchiv mida. One second. The question is, why wouldn't the shchiv mida's documentation of a matna's body, why would that not work?
Who says that he's really sick?
No, he's not sick. I'm sorry. No. That's a technical question. If we know he's sick, a guy's in his bed, he cannot get up. Shchimina, the Rambam says he cannot get up because he's sick. And we're speaking about a shchimina that will eventually die from that. If they wrote a matnas body, says the Mishnah Choizer boy. So now is medayek the Gemara. Let's understand this. A body shekas of daitiki. When the Braisa says he can be choizer, v'loy oithu body, he can be choizer when he's healthy, which he could. That's exactly what the Braisa is saying. And therefore, when the Braisa says the other clause, that a shchivmera that writes a matana choizer boy, are we not speaking about that he's still a shchivmera? And when can he? You know what it means? He gave the matnas body when he was sick. He died as the shchivmera, and the Braisa is clearly saying that yochal lachzer boy. Doesn't matter. The point, but the question is, Danny, it's even better. If this guy has a shchivmera does not need a document. Shchivmera does not need a document. His words are a kinyan. Alama, you write it down. So they didn't write it down correct. But why can't he retract?
If I read this, I would think that this is the route.
No.
It's like doctor, because it's the wrong document, he's able to retract. That means that for the correct document, he's not able to retract. But I interrupt.
When a person has a will and he wants it documented, like we said, we're going to learn that sugya. So Rav holds that the documentation of it indicates that he's giving up his right to renege. He wrote it down, and he did not give up his right to renege. Well, it doesn't make sense. Okay, that's the raya of the Gemara. And that's it. Now, the Gemara just wants to clarify. Tell me, what's the nusach of a daitiki? What's the nusach of a normal matana? So, ezui daitiki, that's a document which it writes. You push it. You open up the document by writing. That's the opening. Da tehei li lemekam v'liyos. This document is going to stand. It's going to endure. That what? And then you continue that ve'i mati means if I'm going to die, yinasnu nechasai leploini. And then you name the beneficiary in the will. A matnas body, the Gemara doesn't have to write what it is. We know what it is. You write the date, and you write that Sadi, my field, you give the boundaries of the field, is a Nesuna to Chaim Yankel. It's very simple. That's called the Matnas body. Okay. Now, I'm sorry. Ezir Matana, the Gemara says, Laflama Yoram Beis, Harei called Nechasai Nesunum Leploini Matana Me'achshav. And of course, you have to write Me'achshav, because if you don't write Me'achshav, once a person dies, then they're not the balabas to give their stuff away. Okay. Says the Gemara, yeah, in the Braisa we learned that a shchivmera beferish can renege on his document, even though they gave the document to the recipient, Danny, right? That was the raya to Shitas Rabbi Yechanan, that Yochel Lachzor. Now, what were to happen if they wrote in the document not a normal matnas body, but they would write Kosuv ba mehayoim. Now, if you write mehayoim, just to make it clear, we said the whole time we're speaking about someone who did not make a kinyan. The case of a kinyan in the document, that was Rabbi Yossi. There was no kinyan. So what's the question? Maybe this document would be the kinyan. It's when you write a proper document and you write the words Mahayoim, that will be the case of a shchivmera that wrote a matnas body. The Braisa says that Yochel Lachzer. And we're explaining that Keshitas Rabbi Yechanan. Very nice. By the way, Rav can be a Tanu Palit. What happens if you add the words Mahayoim? Maybe if he add the words Mahayoim, maybe he will not be able to renege on the gift. That's the Gemara's question. So says the Gemara to resolve this, Achase, the Rabbi Gurion, the sister of Rabbi Gurion, she was sick. Okay, that must be the case. and she's going to pass away. And she had brothers. One of them was Rab Gurion. And when he went to visit her, is Kosfas Nichsei Lachuya. She wrote over her properties to her brother. All right. And obviously, for the Gemara to be drawing from the story, it must have been that in the document, it was not a daitika. All right. It was a matnas buddy that wrote Mehayoim. Mehayoim if I'll die. That's the case. And she gave it to Rabbi Gurion. And then Uslak Achuya Rabba, the older brother, heard about what happened. What did he hear? He heard that Rabbi Gurion went to visit her. He got the whole thing in a document. He went to visit her. And he paise. He Zechibige and they made shalom. And now Uksavas lay, whether she wrote over all the properties to the older brother, whether she included him. I'm writing you out of the will. I'm writing you into the will. These control people, the Meshuggah, every day there's a new will. So what happened was, and then she passed away. So this happened. In other words, she was a shchivmera. Guys, she wrote a matnas body. She added this nusach. The nusach is important. Mehayoim. We are accepting Shitas Rabbi Yechon that normally Yachal Lachzor, maybe not over here. And Haba Uvda, Humay Ravimi. The case came in front of Rabbi. And Ravimi said right away, Rabbi Imi did not differentiate between Mahayoim or not. He says, Kain Amar Rabbi Yechanan, that what? That Chayzer boy. And therefore, the older brother now, the older brother won. She can be Chayzer. Rab Gurion lost out. Very good. So Amar Rab Ze'eda, whoa. No, you're comparing. I don't accept that. Rabbi Yechanan would not Rabbi Yechanan agree that She'im Hoyo Kasav boy Mahayoim She'ena Yachal Achzer boy. In other words, the case of Rabbi Yechanan, see, every step is important. There was no Kenyan. There was no Mahayoim. It's a classic, that's the pshat, it's a classic daitika. That is where Rabbi Yechanan says that Yachalach, because at the end of the day, it only goes into effect upon death, and you can retract. But if you write Mahayoim, maybe that makes it stronger. Like we learned from Rabbi Yossi, Kinyan and document also Lokula Alma. It's mamashagit, like every step. And indeed, Asa Rababo B'Shem Rabbi Yechanan. That was the beauty. Was Rabbi Ze'eda made a protest, but no one knew what Rabbi Yechanan indeed said. Rabbi Yechanan didn't speak about the same. And he says, no, Rabbi Yechanan says, Eina Yachal Achzer boy. And Asa Rebbe. Also Rabbi Ilah is Rabbi Ilah. B'Shem Rabbi Yechanan Ena Yachal Achzer boy. So when he had two witnesses, yes, that's l'choyre. He had two people quoting B'Shem Rabbi Yechanan. So ve'inhar Rav Imi, the guy's ve'inar means not enlightened, as in I accepted. He remembered ve'inar Rav Imi, and now v'chazar uvda. He retracted his ruling. I think there's so much to learn. It's mashma. What happens if he would not have remembered? It means he himself remembered, I heard it from Rabbi Yechanan. Lavdafka, he would have retracted. I don't know. Even though you have two people quoting Rabbi Yechanan that Mahayoim is different. Look at our world. The Rebbe said this, the Rebbe said that. Oh, I remember. But, okay. Oh, Rav for sure would agree with this, yeah. No. Rav for sure. Rav says always Eni Yachalas. Okay. Guys, Gavaldik. Let's go now to the final case of the Mishnah. We're good. Final case of the Mishnah was that again, a married man who undertakes a ksuba has all of his property lean to the ksuba. By the way, we already said even the metaltalin. Today you're right in the ksuba. Vafilu min gelima da al kasfoy. Even from the shirt off my back. It means today you're right in the metaltalin, the shibud. But it wasn't that way. It wasn't that way. It was not a karka. Here we're speaking about a man, a husband, not a shchiv mera, doesn't have to be a shchiv. He's writing all of his nechasim away, even if it's to his children. He's gifting his property. In that document, he adds, and a little land to my wife. If we determine that she agreed to the, never said so explicitly, that's the whole chiddush of the Mishnah. Then we say, what shall she agree to the gift? She released the lien on the other property. She was appeased by receiving a karka kolshu. And don't forget, Chavra, and we said those words when we learned the Mishnah, we're going to have these words over here, that there are sometimes that we say that even though the married woman said something, to give in to the will of her husband, she didn't really accept it. It's called nachas ruach. I wanted to make my husband happy, but I didn't. It's like all of us. We're all married people. I want to make a nachas ruach. Yeah, but I mean no. So another thing. So the question of the Gemara will be, we need to know that she actually was moichel, the shibud. What is the case of the Mishnah that allows us to know? If she said so explicitly, then it's clear. We want to know what exactly is enough of an indication that she gave up the lien of the ksub on the property. Three-way machloikas, and in that document for kasav leishtoi, machloikas tanoim, whether it has to be written in the document in the Mishnah, but whichever way, there has to be an indication. So Raf says, you know when there's an indication? Only b'mezaka al yodeha. How great is that? Only if she was the one that made the kinyan for the kids. Yeah, because it's not just she was in the document. She's making it happen. And if she's not the one inside them, I pull the 6 lines from the top. She was the shliach. Since she made it happen, and not only that, Danny, and she was receiving something. Not only was she doing it, even there, it's only because he gave her karka kolshu. She can say later, but I really didn't mean it. I only meant to make him happy, but I didn't really want to make him happy. Oh, now Shmuel Amar, no, even if she did not make it, as long as b'machalek lifoneha, in other words, the kinyan was done with one of the sons, but it was done in front of her. Says the Manafulda v'hishoy sakas, afilo eina mazaka al yoda. That's also an indication that will be binding that she forfeited her right to the ksubam. And the third opinion we're going to learn pshat, Rabbi Yosi ben Chanina Amar. No, mikule ksuba shanukan. What is he saying over here? Says the Marafulda, Kivin Sha'am Allah, Kli Sadazu Biksuva Seich. Take this land. We're speaking about a little land. Vishoy Sakas. Af Shaloi Chilek Ashal Lefanel. You get it? You don't need it as long as a man tells his wife, woman, wife, dear wife, this is for your ksuba. And this is not the value of the ksuba, but it's land from which she can collect it. That means that she's linking the ksuba to this and she removes the lien. That's even in this case. And that's indeed a big leniency. We find many other leniencies by ksuba. For example, ksuba. Why does she take it from the ziburis? Why not get it at least from the beinanis? Certainly not from the idias. Right? Remember that tan lames of tandu, but lames of armalu, because the Chazal established a woman did not give the money of the ksuba. In other words, she's getting it, and a woman would rather be in marriage. So therefore, she allows a lot of leeway, including this. Then that's the reason why Rabbi Yosef ben Chanina is so lenient, and v'chein tana bar kapara mikolei ksuba shanu. And not only that, Amar Rabbi Ba Talmud Rabbi Yosef ben Chanina. Talmud doesn't mean the reason behind the opinion. Isn't only benegeya the ksuba of mana and the mosayim, mana meaning if she was an almana, mosayim meaning if she's a psula, right? It's not only because, like I just mentioned, she didn't bring the money in. She did not bring the money in. What happens if there's a Sfardi? He wrote in the ksuba $1 million. Afi ksuba shel 1,000 dinar. Even if not only she did not make the kinyan, he did not divide the land. She doesn't know that he gave the land away. But he gives this wife a little piece of land and he says, this is for your ksuba. And she didn't protest. She did not protest. Is also mikule ksuba shanu, and she was moichel. To be continued. Rabbi Yossi, in other words, we don't say nachas ruach asisi l'bayit.